My girlfriend said, "I met someone." I replied, "I need my locks changed right now. Tonight." Then I flew home, changed the locks, boxed up her things, sent them to her parents, and let my lawyer answer every call while she was still in Greece thinking she could come back and explain it all. Welcome back to WZ Tales. Today's story is about a man whose girlfriend left him for a yoga instructor during the very trip where he planned to propose. As you listen, think about the moment where you would have stopped hoping and started walking away. 6 months ago, I thought my life was settled. I was 32, working as a software engineer, living in New York, and in a relationship that had lasted 6 years. Her name was Jessica. She was 30, worked in marketing, and for a long time I believed we were building something solid. We had the kind of relationship that feels steady from the inside. We had routines, habits, little private jokes that made no sense to anyone else. We argued about small things, like who forgot to buy coffee or who finished the last yogurt, but none of it felt serious. It felt normal. It felt lived in. I thought that was what love looked like after enough time had passed. Not constant sparks, not drama, just trust, comfort, and the quiet sense that you were building toward the same future. And I was building toward one very specific future. For 8 months, I had been planning a trip to Greece, not just a vacation, but the trip, the one I was going to remember for the rest of my life. I had researched hotels, restaurants, island transfers, sunsets, all of it. I had found the perfect proposal spot in Santorini. I had the ring with me the whole time, custom-made, a sapphire with tiny diamonds around it, because Jessica always said traditional rings were too predictable. She wanted something that felt personal, something with a story. I had the speech ready too. I had gone over it in my head so many times I could almost hear myself saying it. I thought I knew exactly how that week would end. The first 2 days in Greece were everything I hoped they would be. We had breakfast on the balcony with the sea spread out in front of us, bright and unreal, like a postcard someone had edited too much. We walked through narrow white streets lined with flowers, spent time on the beach, laughed over cheap wine, took too many pictures, and talked about all the usual things couples talk about when they feel safe with each other. Jessica seemed happy, truly happy, relaxed, open. I remember taking a photo of her with the sunset behind her and thinking that this was the moment my life was about to begin in a new way. Looking back, that memory stayed with me for a while because it was the last time I felt completely sure. Then day 3 came and something shifted. It was subtle at first. She said she wanted to try a morning yoga class at the resort. That meant nothing to me. I was not interested in yoga, so I went for a run along the coast and figured we would meet back up later. When she came back, something felt off. She looked energized, almost glowing, but not in the usual post-workout way. It was more private than that, more inward. And for the rest of the day, she kept checking her phone, smiling at it in a way that made me feel like I had walked into the middle of a conversation I was not supposed to hear. I asked who she was texting. She said it was Sarah from work, dealing with boyfriend drama again. The answer came too fast, and when I glanced over, the name on the screen did not look like Sarah. The moment she noticed me looking, she tilted the phone away. That was the first red flag, and like a lot of people in love, I explained it away for her. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself proposal nerves were making me paranoid. When people want the future badly enough, they can talk themselves out of what is right in front of them. Day 4 was worse. She went back to yoga, stayed longer, came back distant, distracted, and hard to reach. That evening I took her to a restaurant I had picked out ahead of time, a place I had been excited about because it felt romantic and special. She barely touched her food. She stared past me toward the water. When I reached for her hand, she pulled away and said she was tired from the sun. Later that night, back in the room, I tried to close the gap that had opened between us, not just physically, emotionally. I thought maybe if we got close again, whatever this strange mood was would pass. She turned away and said she had a headache. I lay awake beside her in the dark, listening to her phone vibrate on the nightstand. It is a lonely feeling when someone is right next to you but already gone. By day 5, I still had not admitted the truth to myself, but I could feel it circling. That was also the night I had planned to propose. I had made reservations at the nicest restaurant on the island. Cliffside view, sunset over the caldera, the kind of place where people celebrate the biggest moments of their lives. The ring was in my jacket pocket the whole time. My hands were sweating. I kept waiting for the right moment, the exact point when the sky would turn orange and gold, when the words I had practiced would finally come out. But before I could say anything, Jessica put down her wine glass, looked at me with a face I did not recognize, and said, "We need to talk." I knew then. Not the details, but the direction. Some part of me knew. She said she had met someone, the yoga instructor. His name was Andreas. She said he made her feel alive in a way she had not felt in years. She said that with me, she felt safe and comfortable, but with him she felt awake, like she was really living. She did not say it cruelly. That almost made it worse. She said it like she was explaining a truth she had just discovered about herself, like she expected me to understand the beauty of it. Around us, the restaurant kept going. People laughed. Glasses clinked. Waiters moved between tables. The sunset kept happening like nothing in the world had changed. I remember asking only one question. "What are you saying, Jessica?" And she answered in the clearest way possible. "This is over." There it was. 6 years, reduced to one sentence in a restaurant overlooking the sea. Then she kept going. She said she had already spoken to Andreas and was going to stay at his villa for the rest of the week. She told me I should stay and enjoy the vacation since the hotel was already paid for. She said she was sorry. She said she cared about me. She said she hoped I would understand someday. A lot of people say they care about you right after they do the exact thing that proves they do not. She reached for my hand. I pulled mine back. I could feel the ring in my pocket like a piece of hot metal. I had come to that dinner thinking I was about to begin my future. Instead, I was sitting there watching the end of a relationship I had trusted with my whole life. Then she stood up and walked away. I do not remember much after that. I do not remember paying the bill. I do not remember the walk back to the hotel. I only remember sitting on the balcony until deep into the night, staring at the dark water with the ring box in my hand. At some point, the shock wore off and something colder replaced it. Not calm exactly, not peace, more like clarity, the kind that shows up when there is nothing left to save. By sunrise, I had made my decision. Jessica's suitcase was gone. She must have come back while I was sitting outside and packed without facing me. That was fine. I did not want one more talk, one more explanation, one more performance about feelings and timing and how none of this was supposed to happen. I looked out at the island waking up and realized one thing very clearly. I was not going to stay there and play the role she had written for me. I was not going to wander through Greece alone, broken and waiting for closure from someone who had already chosen someone else. I was not going to be the man she told Andreas about later with a sad smile, the one she had outgrown. So I opened my phone and looked for flights. There was one leaving Athens in a few hours. I booked it immediately. Business class because economy was full and because in that moment I did not care what it cost. Then I opened my laptop and made a list. Change the locks, call a lawyer, separate the accounts, pack her things. Remove her access from everything. That was the moment I stopped reacting and started acting. And sometimes that is the only thing that keeps a bad situation from becoming worse. By 6:30 that morning, I had checked out of the hotel and was on my way to the airport. By the time I landed in New York, it was the middle of the night, and I went straight from the airport to my apartment. The first call I made was to a locksmith, emergency service. I told him I needed the locks changed immediately and that I could pay whatever it took. He showed up at 3 in the morning, tired but efficient, and did not ask many questions. Maybe he did not need to. Maybe he had seen that look before. By 4, the locks were changed and Jessica's keys meant nothing. I tried to sleep after that, but I could not. So I started packing. Every single item that belonged to her went into boxes. Clothes, books, cosmetics, candles, kitchen gadgets, shoes, blankets, framed photos, everything. I packed carefully, not out of kindness, but out of discipline. I was not going to give her a single reason to claim I had damaged her things or acted recklessly. If this was ending, it was ending cleanly. It took hours. 15 boxes in total. When I stepped back and looked at the apartment, it already felt different. Not happy. Not healed. Just stripped down to the truth. At 9 that morning, I called my friend Mark, a lawyer I had known since college. I told him what happened in direct, simple terms. No speech, no emotional breakdown, just facts. She left me during the trip. The apartment was in my name. We had shared accounts. I wanted everything separated properly. He told me to come to his office that afternoon. The hardest part of that day was not the legal work. It was calling Jessica's parents. They had always been good to me. They had treated me like family. I told them what happened in Greece and kept my voice steady while I did it. Her mother started crying. Her father got on the phone and asked what I needed. I told him I had packed Jessica's belongings and I could not keep them at the apartment. He told me to bring everything to their house. So that afternoon, after meeting with Mark, I rented a van and drove the boxes to New Jersey. Jessica's parents helped me unload them. They both looked stunned, like they were still trying to fit the story into the daughter they thought they knew. Before I left, her mother hugged me and said I did not deserve what happened. That meant more than I expected. By that evening, the apartment was fully mine again. Mark had prepared formal documents stating that Jessica was no longer authorized to enter the property, that her belongings had been removed and were available through her parents, and that shared accounts would be closed within 5 business days. He also handled the legal side of ending any cohabitation issues we might have had. I stood in the middle of that quiet apartment and smiled. Not because I was happy, because I had done the one thing that mattered most in that moment. I had refused to stay powerless. Jessica was probably still in Greece, still thinking she would come back and manage the ending on her own terms. She probably imagined tears, talks, confusion, maybe even forgiveness. She did not understand that she had already had her chance to speak, and she used it to tell me another man made her feel alive. After that, there was nothing left for me to discuss. The next week felt strange in its calm. I went to work. I went to the gym. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in relationship trauma. I did not spend my days falling apart. I kept moving, one clear step at a time. That may sound cold, but it was survival. A few days later, Mark sent the documents by email and certified mail to her parents' address. On day 8, Jessica started trying to contact me. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. Different numbers after I blocked the first one. I did not answer any of them. Every message went through Mark. That boundary mattered. Once someone shows you they can destroy the relationship and still expect access to you, boundaries stop being optional. On day 9, my building doorman called while I was at work. He said a woman was downstairs claiming to be my girlfriend and saying her key no longer worked. I told him her name was Jessica, she was not my girlfriend anymore, and she was not authorized to enter the building. I told him if she caused trouble, he should call the police. That evening he handed me an envelope, a handwritten letter from her, 4 pages. I threw it away without reading it. Some people will say that was harsh. Maybe it was. But not every apology deserves an audience, especially when it only appears after the consequences arrive. Later that night, Mark called and said Jessica had contacted his office. She wanted 5 minutes to explain. She said the man in Greece meant nothing and that she had made a mistake. That part almost made me laugh. A mistake is missing a train stop or sending an email to the wrong person. Leaving your partner for another man during the trip where he planned to propose is not a mistake. It is a decision. I told Mark to tell her no. I said there was nothing left to explain because she had already explained everything at that restaurant. 3 weeks passed. I changed my phone number. That felt final, but final was what I needed. I started seeing friends again. I accepted a dinner invitation from Sarah, a woman in my company's marketing department. We had always gotten along. She was warm, easy to talk to, and most importantly, she did not dig into my private life just to satisfy curiosity. 1 month after Greece, I saw Jessica by accident. I was sitting in a cafe near my apartment when I looked up and saw her through the window walking down the sidewalk with her mother. She looked tired, thinner, less polished than I had ever seen her. Our eyes met. I watched recognition hit her face, then hope, then panic. She turned toward the entrance of the cafe. I stood up, left money on the table, and walked out the back. I did not do it to punish her. I did it because the relationship was over, and over means over. You do not reopen closed doors just because the other person is finally ready to feel the loss. That night, I found the photo I had taken of her in Santorini, the one with the sunset behind her. I had kept it on my phone for reasons I could not fully explain. Maybe because I needed proof that what I believed had once felt real to me. Maybe because deleting it earlier would have felt too emotional. This time, I deleted it and felt nothing. 2 months after Greece, Sarah and I went on our first real date, just dinner and a movie, nothing dramatic, nothing intense. She laughed easily. She listened without prying. Being around her felt light in a way I had forgotten relationships could feel. Driving home that night, I kept thinking about something Jessica had said. That Andreas made her feel alive, and that comfort was somehow a problem. But comfort is not the enemy in a healthy relationship. It is one of the rewards. Safety is not boring when it is real. Stability is not failure. Peace is not something to be ashamed of. Jessica chased intensity and called it truth. She threw away something steady for something immediate. Maybe she learned from that. Maybe she did not. By then, it no longer mattered to me. What mattered was this. She showed me who she was before I married her. Before I signed a deeper life to someone who could walk out that easily. At the time, it felt like humiliation. Later, I understood it as escape. Sometimes the worst moment in your life is the one that clears the path in front of you. Not because it hurts less than you expected, but because once the pain settles, you can finally see what you were about to commit yourself to. And when you see it clearly, walking away is not bitterness. It is self-respect. If there is a lesson in all of this, it is probably more than one. Lesson 1 is that comfort and trust are not signs that love has died. Very often, they are signs that love has matured. Lesson 2 is that when someone starts hiding simple things and calling your concern insecurity, pay attention. Small secrecy has a way of turning into big betrayal. Lesson 3 is that closure is not always a conversation. Sometimes closure is changing the locks, returning the boxes, and refusing to keep bleeding for someone who already left. Lesson 4 is that dignity matters most right after a betrayal, when you are tempted to bargain with someone who has already made their choice. Lesson 5 is that not every ending is a loss. Some endings are protection in disguise. So what would you have done in this situation? Would you have heard her out when she came back, or would you have cut contact the same way he did? And have you ever had a moment where something painful later turned out to save you? Share your thoughts in the comments.